stood in the Ashford family's grand living room, holding a simple bouquet of daisies I'd picked from our neighborhood park. My future mother-in-law, Catherine Ashford, stared at the flowers like I'd handed her garbage. "Daisies," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "How quaint. I suppose you couldn't afford real flowers from an actual florist." My fiancé Lucas squeezed my hand reassuringly, but I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment. It was my first dinner at his family's mansion, and I was already failing their expectations. "They're beautiful, Mom," Lucas said firmly. "Emma picked them herself. That's more thoughtful than buying something expensive." Catherine's lips tightened into a thin line. Lucas's father, Richard, barely looked up from his newspaper. His sister, Vanessa, smirked from the corner where she was scrolling through her phone. "Well," Catherine continued, turning to me with a forced smile, "I suppose we should be grateful you made any effort at all. Lucas tells us you work as a social worker. How charitable of you to help poor people." The way she said poor people made it clear she was including me in that category. I was Emma Chen. Correction, I needed a different surname. Emma Hayes, 26 years old, earning $35,000 a year helping families in crisis. Lucas's family wealth made that seem like pocket change. "Shall we eat?" I suggested quietly, desperate to escape this interrogation. Dinner was excruciating. The Ashfords' dining room could have fit my entire apartment inside it. Crystal chandeliers, imported china, servants bringing course after course. It was a different world. Catherine dominated the conversation, making pointed comments about my background every few minutes. "So your parents own a small bakery?" she asked, though Lucas had already told her this. "How sweet. I imagine the profit margins on bread are quite thin these days." "They work hard," I replied evenly. "They put 3 kids through college with that bakery. On student loans, I assume?" Richard finally spoke, looking at me over his wine glass. "Scholarships and loans, yes." Vanessa laughed. "Lucas, you're really marrying someone with student debt? That's going to drag down your credit score." Lucas's jaw tightened. "Vanessa, that's enough. I'm just being practical," she said innocently. "Daddy always taught us to consider financial compatibility." Catherine nodded approvingly. "She has a point, dear. Marriage is a business arrangement as much as a romantic one. You need someone who can contribute equally, not someone who'll be a financial burden." I set down my fork carefully, willing myself not to cry or scream. Lucas reached for my hand under the table. "Emma is not a burden," he said coldly. "She's the woman I love. And if you can't respect that, we can leave right now." The table fell silent. Richard cleared his throat uncomfortably. After that disastrous dinner, Lucas apologized profusely on the drive home. "They're just protective. They'll come around once they get to know you." But they didn't come around. Over the next 6 months of wedding planning, Catherine made every decision a battle. She hated my venue suggestions. Too cheap. She dismissed my dress choices. Too simple. She even tried to exclude my parents from the rehearsal dinner, claiming space limitations. "Your parents would be more comfortable at a smaller casual event," she told me. "The rehearsal dinner is really for our business associates and social circle." "My parents are paying for half this wedding," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "They will be at the rehearsal dinner." Catherine smiled patronizingly. "Oh dear, are they paying half? How generous of them to contribute what they can. We're covering the venue, catering, flowers, band, and photographer. I suppose your parents can handle." "What, the invitations?" The truth was, my parents were stretching themselves thin to contribute $15,000. The Ashfords were spending over $100,000 without blinking. I called Lucas that night, crying. "Your mother is impossible. She treats me like I'm some gold digger trying to steal the family fortune." "I know," he sighed. "But Emma, I love you. We just need to get through the wedding. Once we're married and living our own life, my family won't matter as much." That was my first mistake. Believing distance would solve the problem. The wedding day arrived. I looked beautiful in my dress. Simple, elegant, paid for by my parents' savings. Walking down the aisle toward Lucas, I felt hopeful. Maybe marriage would change things. But at the reception, Catherine couldn't resist making digs. During her toast, she said, "Welcome to the family, Emma. We're so glad Lucas found someone who makes him happy, even if she comes from humble beginnings. We'll do our best to help you adjust to our lifestyle." Guests laughed uncomfortably. My mother's face flushed with embarrassment. I gripped my champagne glass so hard I thought it might shatter. Lucas pulled me aside afterward. "I'm sorry. He's drunk." Ignore her. But how do you ignore someone who constantly reminds you that you're not good enough? The honeymoon was our escape. 2 weeks in Bali, far from the Ashfords. Lucas and I were happy, just the two of us. But reality waited at home. We returned to find Catherine had helped by furnishing our new apartment. Without asking, she'd filled it with expensive furniture, artwork, and decor that screamed Ashford taste. "Surprise," she said when we arrived. "I know you two have been so busy, and frankly, Emma dear, you don't have experience decorating properly. So I took care of everything." Our home didn't feel like ours anymore. Felt like an Ashford showroom. That night I finally broke down completely. "Lucas, I can't do this. Your family doesn't respect me. They never will." Lucas promised to set boundaries with his family, but it was hard. He worked at Ashford Enterprises, the family's real estate development company. Richard was his boss. Catherine was on the board. Vanessa worked in marketing. They controlled his career, his income, his future. "I'll talk to them," he assured me. "But I can't just cut them off. My entire career is tied to the company." I understood, but it hurt. I was asking him to choose between me and his family's approval. Meanwhile, I threw myself into my social work. I loved my job helping families navigate crises, domestic violence, homelessness, addiction. It was meaningful work, even if it didn't pay well. One evening I was working late on a case when my supervisor, Angela, knocked on my office door. "Emma, can we talk?" She sat down, looking uncomfortable. "I wanted you to hear this from me first. The state is cutting our department's funding. We're eliminating 3 positions. Yours is one of them." My world tilted. "What? But my performance reviews are excellent." "This isn't about performance. It's about budget cuts." "I'm so sorry. I was being laid off. After 6 years of dedicated work, I was losing my job." I drove home in a daze, trying to figure out how to tell Lucas. We had bills, rent, my student loans. My income was modest, but we needed it. Lucas was sympathetic when I told him, but his solution made my stomach drop. "Don't worry. I'll ask Dad for a position at Ashford Enterprises. We can get you a job there." "No," I said immediately. "I don't want to work for your family." "Emma, be practical. You need a job. We have one available. It's perfect. Perfect for them to control my entire life." I shot back. "Your mother already thinks I'm useless. Imagine if I'm also dependent on their paycheck." We argued for hours. Lucas couldn't understand why I'd refuse a good-paying job out of pride. I couldn't make him see that working for the Ashfords would destroy whatever independence I had left. Finally, exhausted, I agreed to one interview. Just one. Richard Ashford sat across from me in his massive office, reviewing my resume with barely concealed amusement. Social work degree. No business experience. No relevant skills for our industry. He looked up. "What exactly do you think you can contribute to Ashford Enterprises?" "I'm hardworking, organized, and quick to learn," I said, trying to sound confident. "Those are qualities we expect from everyone," he replied dismissively. "We need people with actual expertise. Real estate, finance, marketing. You have none of that." The interview lasted 15 painful minutes. Richard offered me a position as an administrative assistant, basically a secretary. At $30,000 a year, $5,000 less than I'd been making as a social worker. "It's entry level," he explained. "But if you work hard and prove yourself, Perhaps we can find something better suited to your limited skill set. I wanted to throw his offer back in his face. But I needed income. So I swallowed my pride and accepted. Working at Ashford Enterprises was humiliating. I filed papers, answered phones, scheduled meetings, and fetched coffee. Catherine made sure to stop by my desk regularly, always with witnesses. Emma dear, could you make copies of these reports? I'd ask someone more senior, but this is really more appropriate for your level. Or, Emma, the break room coffee is terrible. Could you run to Starbucks and get proper coffee? Here's $20. Keep the change. I know you need it. Every interaction was designed to remind me of my place. I was the poor girl who'd married into their family, and they'd never let me forget it. Lucas tried to defend me when he could, but he was also trying to prove himself to his father. Richard had hinted at promoting Lucas to vice president, but only if he showed proper judgment and priorities. The implication was clear. Choosing me over family interests showed poor judgment. 6 months into my job at Ashford Enterprises, I was exhausted and depressed. I'd gone from meaningful work helping people to being a glorified servant for Lucas's family. One particularly bad day, I locked myself in the bathroom and cried. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend Priya. How are you holding up? I typed back. I've made a huge mistake. I should never have married into this family. The moment I hit send, I regretted it. But it was true. I thought love would be enough. It wasn't. That evening, I came home to find Lucas waiting with unexpected news. I need to tell you something, and you're going to be upset. My heart sank. What now? Dad wants me to relocate to our new development project in California. It's a huge opportunity. I'd be running the entire West Coast operations. But it means moving for at least 2 years. When did you decide this? Ask carefully. I haven't decided anything, he said quickly. I wanted to talk to you first. But Emma, this is the opportunity I've been waiting for. It's my chance to prove I can lead, not just coast on the family name. I understood career ambition. I respected it. But the timing felt cruel. What about my job? My family? We'd be leaving everything behind. You hate your job, Lucas pointed out. And this could be a fresh start for us, away from my parents' interference. He had a point. Distance from the Ashfords sounded wonderful. But something felt wrong about this decision, like I was being swept along by forces I couldn't control. Can I think about it? Yes. Of course. But Dad needs an answer by Friday. 3 days to decide whether to uproot my entire life. I called Priya, who listened to everything before offering her perspective. Emma, do you trust Lucas's family? I thought about that question. No, not even a little. Then don't move across the country where you'll be even more isolated and dependent on them. I told Lucas I wouldn't move to California. He was disappointed but understanding. Okay. I'll turn down the opportunity. But the next day at work, I overheard a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. Catherine and Richard were in the conference room with the door slightly ajar. He's refusing California because of that girl, Catherine said angrily. She's holding him back, Richard agreed. He needs to understand that family business comes before personal relationships. If he won't prioritize correctly, maybe he's not ready for leadership. We need to make him see that she's dragging him down, Catherine continued. Perhaps if she wasn't around, he'd make better choices. My blood ran cold. They weren't just dismissive of me. They actively wanted me gone. I recorded the rest of the conversation on my phone, hands shaking. They discussed ways to encourage our separation, cutting Lucas's salary, making my job unbearable, even offering me money to leave. How much do you think it would take? Richard mused. 20,000. 50. She comes from nothing, Catherine said. 50,000 would seem like a fortune. We could frame it as starting over money. I backed away from the door, sick to my stomach. They were literally plotting to buy me out of Lucas's life. That evening I showed Lucas the recording. His face went pale as he listened. I can't believe. They actually want to pay you to leave me? Lucas, they've been trying to break us up since day one. Lucas confronted his parents the next morning. I waited anxiously at home, unsure what would happen. When he returned, he looked shaken but determined. I quit, he said simply. What? I quit Ashford Enterprises. I told them I wouldn't work for people who treat my wife like garbage. I'm done. I stared at him shocked. But your career? I'll build a new career. One that doesn't require selling my soul to people who measure worth in dollar signs. He pulled me into a hug. I'm sorry it took me so long to stand up for you. You deserved better from day one. For the first time in our marriage, I felt like we were truly a team. But quitting meant we'd lost our primary income. Lucas had some savings, but not enough to support us for long. I'll find another job, he assured me. I have experience, skills, connections outside the family. He was right. Within 3 weeks, Lucas had interviews with 2 competing real estate firms. Both were impressed by his experience and offered him positions. He chose Sterling Properties, a smaller but rapidly growing company. The salary was less than Ashford Enterprises, but the environment was healthier. Meanwhile, I quit my humiliating administrative job. I wasn't going back to the Ashford's office, no matter what. Instead, I focused on finding meaningful work again. A non-profit called Hope Foundation reached out. They needed someone to develop their family services program. The pay was modest, $40,000 a year, but the work mattered. We were starting over together on our own terms. The Ashfords didn't take Lucas's departure well. Catherine called repeatedly, alternating between guilt trips and threats. You're throwing away your inheritance, she warned. Your father is rewriting his will. That's his choice, Lucas said calmly. Vanessa sent nasty texts. Enjoy poverty. Hope Emma's worth being disowned. We blocked them all and focused on building our own life. It was hard. We had to downsize our apartment, cut expenses, budget carefully. But for the first time we were happy. I threw myself into my new role at Hope Foundation. The work was challenging but rewarding. I was helping families again, making a real difference. One day, I was meeting with a client, a woman named Sylvia who was escaping an abusive relationship. As I helped her create a safety plan and connect with resources, something clicked. I knew this work. I understood these systems. And I had ideas about how to improve them. That evening I shared my thoughts with Lucas. What if we could create a comprehensive support center? One place where families in crisis could access everything. Legal help, housing assistance, counseling, job training, childcare. Lucas's eyes lit up. That's brilliant. Like a one-stop resource center. Exactly. Most families navigate like 5 different agencies when they're in crisis. It's overwhelming. What if we streamlined everything? You should write a proposal, Lucas encouraged. Present it to Hope Foundation's board. I spent 3 weeks developing the idea, researching best practices, creating budgets and timelines. My proposal was comprehensive and passionate. The Hope Foundation board loved my proposal. They approved a pilot program with a $50,000 budget to test the concept. I assembled a small team and launched the Family Resource Center in a modest storefront. We partnered with legal aid, housing agencies, counselors, and job training programs, creating a network of coordinated services. The response was overwhelming. Within 3 months, we'd helped 200 families. Success stories poured in. Women escaping abuse, families avoiding homelessness, parents finding stable employment. Local media noticed. A newspaper ran a feature. New Resource Center transforms family services. The article highlighted my innovative approach and the measurable impact. That publicity brought more attention and, crucially, more funding. Private donors started contributing. Grants started flowing in. Within 6 months, we'd expanded to a larger space and hired additional staff. Lucas was thriving at Sterling Properties too. He was leading major development projects and earning recognition for his innovative approaches to sustainable building. We were building something together. Not wealth exactly, but success on our own terms. We were proving we didn't need the Ashford name or money to make meaningful lives. One evening we celebrated paying off my student loans. It had taken careful budgeting and sacrifice, but we'd done it. "I'm proud of us," Lucas said, raising his glass. "We're doing this our way." I smiled, feeling genuinely happy for the first time since our wedding. 2 years after Lucas quit Ashford Enterprises, we heard disturbing rumors. The company was struggling. Richard had made some risky investments that hadn't paid off. Their flagship development project had stalled due to environmental challenges. Vanessa's social media, which I'd unblocked out of curiosity, showed subtle signs of strain. Fewer luxury vacation posts, more generic content. Then one day, Lucas received a call from his father. "I need to talk to you," Richard said stiffly. "Can you come by the house?" Lucas hesitated, looking at me. "Do you want me to go?" "That's your decision," I said. "But I'm not going with you." He went alone. When he returned 2 hours later, he looked troubled. "The company's in serious trouble," he explained. "Dad made some bad investments and they're facing a cash flow crisis." He asked if I'd come back to help salvage things. "What did you tell him?" I said no. "But Emma..." Part of me wonders if I should help. Not for him, but for the employees who depend on those jobs. I understood his conflict. Lucas wasn't cruel or vindictive. He genuinely cared about people, even when they treated him badly. "If you want to help, I support you," I said carefully. "But protect yourself. Get everything in writing. Don't let them manipulate you." Lucas reached out to an attorney who helped him draft terms. He'd consult for Ashford Enterprises at a rate of $500 per hour, with no equity and no long-term commitment. Richard balked at the fee. "You're my son. Family doesn't charge family." "You taught me that business is business," Lucas replied coolly. "These are my terms. Take them or leave them." Richard eventually agreed, desperate for Lucas's expertise. Lucas spent 3 months analyzing Ashford Enterprises' situation and developing a restructuring plan. The news was worse than expected. Richard had over-leveraged the company, taking on massive debt for projects that weren't generating returns. They were months from bankruptcy. Lucas's restructuring plan was harsh but necessary. Sell off unprofitable properties, renegotiate debts, cut expenses drastically. It meant downsizing staff and abandoning some projects, but it would save the company. "This will work," Lucas told his father, "but you have to actually implement it. No cutting corners, no ignoring the hard decisions." Richard grudgingly accepted the plan. But implementation required something they didn't have: someone trustworthy to oversee the restructuring. That's when Richard made an unexpected request. "I need you to come back full-time. Not forever, just 2 years to see this through." Lucas was torn. The ethical part of him wanted to help save jobs. The wounded son part wanted to refuse. "Let me discuss it with Emma," he said. At home we talked through every angle. Financially it would be lucrative. Richard offered $250,000 a year. But emotionally, it meant re-engaging with people who'd hurt us deeply. "What do you want to do?" I asked. "Honestly, I want to help save the company, then walk away knowing I did the right thing. But I won't do it without your support." I thought about it carefully. The Ashfords had treated me terribly, but hundreds of employees would suffer if the company failed. People who'd done nothing wrong. "Do it," I said finally. "But I have conditions. You work there, but we don't socialize with your family. No dinners, no holidays, no pretending things are fine. Strictly business." Lucas agreed. He returned to Ashford Enterprises as Chief Restructuring Officer, reporting directly to the board with authority to make necessary changes. His first act was implementing the hard decisions Richard had been avoiding: closing unprofitable divisions, selling problem properties, renegotiating vendor contracts. It was brutal but necessary. Catherine and Vanessa resented his authority, but they couldn't argue with the results. Within 6 months, the bleeding had stopped. Within a year, the company was stable again. Meanwhile, my family resource center continued growing. We'd expanded to 3 locations and were helping over 1,000 families annually. Our model was being studied by other cities as a blueprint for integrated family services. I was invited to present at a national conference on innovative social services. Standing before hundreds of professionals, I shared our approach and outcomes. The response was overwhelming. Multiple cities wanted to replicate our model. A philanthropist named Victoria Sterling approached me after my presentation. "I want to fund expansion of your model. I'm thinking national scale." "What would you need?" My mind raced. National scale. I'd need to develop a franchise-like system, training materials, quality standards, funding mechanisms. "Draft a proposal," Victoria said, handing me her card. "I have 20 million to invest in promising social innovations. I think yours qualifies." I spent 3 months developing a proposal for national expansion. The concept was ambitious. Create family resource centers in 50 cities over 5 years, each adapted to local needs but following our core model. Victoria's foundation approved the full 20 million. We incorporated as a non-profit called Thrive Together, with me as founder and CEO. Suddenly, I was running a national organization. I hired a team of regional directors, developed training programs, created quality standards, and began rolling out centers in cities across the country. The media took notice. I was profiled in publications about social entrepreneurship and innovation. My name appeared on lists of influential nonprofit leaders. One evening, Lucas showed me an article in Fortune magazine. "Emma Hayes, Building an Empire of Hope." The article detailed my journey from social worker to CEO of a national nonprofit serving over 10,000 families annually. It mentioned briefly that I was married to Lucas Ashford, son of struggling real estate developer Richard Ashford. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. I'd gone from being dismissed as the poor girl to being the successful one, while his family's business barely survived. "How does it feel?" Lucas asked. "Strange," I admitted. "I didn't do any of this to prove anything to your family. I did it because the work mattered." "I know," he smiled. "That's what makes it even better." Ashford Enterprises stabilized over Lucas's 2-year commitment. The company wouldn't return to its former glory, but it would survive as a smaller, leaner operation. Lucas fulfilled his obligation and prepared to leave again. Before Lucas's final day at Ashford Enterprises, Richard requested a family meeting. Lucas insisted I attend. No more excluding my wife. We sat in the Ashfords' formal living room, the same place where Catherine had sneered at my daisies 4 years earlier. But the atmosphere was different now. Subdued. Humbled. Richard cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Lucas, Emma, I asked you here to express gratitude. Lucas's work saved this company. Without him, we'd have lost everything." It was the closest to an apology Richard Ashford was capable of giving. Catherine spoke next, her voice strained. "I've been reflecting on how I treated you, Emma. I was unkind. I judged you without knowing you. I'm sorry." The apology felt forced, but I sensed it was genuine. Loss had humbled her. Vanessa said nothing, just stared at her hands. "I appreciate that," I said carefully. "It wasn't easy being treated like I wasn't good enough." "You were always good enough," Lucas interjected firmly. "My family just couldn't see it because they were blinded by their own prejudices." Richard shifted uncomfortably. "We made mistakes. We prioritized the wrong things. Money, status, appearances. We nearly destroyed our family and our business because we couldn't see what actually mattered." There was a long silence. Finally, Catherine spoke again. "Emma, I saw the article about your organization. What you've built is remarkable. You've helped thousands of people. That's real success, not the kind we've been chasing." I nodded, accepting her words. "Thank you. We were wrong about you," Richard added. "Completely wrong. You're more successful than we ever were, and you did it through talent and hard work, not inherited wealth." After the meeting, Lucas and I drove home in silence. Finally I spoke. I didn't expect that. Neither did I, Lucas admitted. Losing everything forced them to see clearly. Are you glad we went? He thought about it. Yes. Not because I needed their validation, but because it closes a chapter. They acknowledged how they treated you was wrong. That matters. Over the next few months, the Ashfords made tentative overtures toward rebuilding a relationship. Catherine invited us to dinner. Casual, just the family, no judgment. I hesitated but eventually agreed. The dinner was surprisingly pleasant. Catherine asked genuine questions about Thrive Together. Richard expressed interest in Lucas's new venture. He'd left Sterling Properties to start his own sustainable development firm. Vanessa even apologized, though awkwardly. I was jealous of you, she admitted. You had something real with Lucas. All I had were superficial relationships based on money and status. I'm working on being a better person. They weren't perfect, but they were trying. That was something. But the biggest change came from an unexpected direction. Richard approached me privately at the end of the evening. Emma, I need to ask you something. It's difficult, but I'm hoping you'll consider it. My guard went up immediately. What is it? Ashford Enterprises is stable but not growing. We need fresh vision and leadership. I'm stepping down as CEO. I'd like you to consider taking the position. I stared at him, speechless. You want me to run your company? You've proven you can build and lead an organization, Richard continued. You think differently than we do, and that's exactly what we need. I know I have no right to ask after how we treated you, but I'm asking anyway. I almost laughed at the absurdity. 4 years ago, they offered me a secretary position as a charity. Now they wanted me to run the company. I need to think about it, I said finally. At home, Lucas and I discussed the offer. It's ironic, he said. They spent years telling you that you weren't good enough, and now they're begging you to save them. I don't need to save them, I pointed out. I have thrived together. That's my purpose. True. But think about what you could do with Ashford Enterprises resources. You could integrate social responsibility into every project. Use real estate development as a tool for community building, not just profit. He had a point. With control of a development company, I could create mixed-income housing, community centers, spaces for nonprofits. I could transform how development impacted vulnerable communities. I'll do it on my terms, I decided. Majority control, board seats for people I choose, freedom to reshape the company's mission. If they won't agree, I walk away. Richard agreed to every condition. I became CEO of Ashford Enterprises with 51% ownership. Lucas joined as president of sustainable development. Together we had full control. Our first act was renaming the company Thrive Development Group, aligning it with the values of my nonprofit work. Transforming Ashford Enterprises, now Thrive Development Group, took 2 years of intensive work. We shifted from luxury developments targeting wealthy buyers to mixed-use projects that served diverse communities. Our flagship project was a former industrial area we redeveloped into an inclusive neighborhood. Affordable housing alongside market-rate units, a community center, small business incubators, green spaces, and integrated social services. We partnered with my family resource centers to provide on-site support for residents. The project became a national model for equitable development. Critics initially dismissed our approach as unprofitable, but we proved them wrong. By prioritizing long-term community value over short-term profits, we created sustainable developments that attracted investors interested in social impact. Thrive Development Group became profitable while maintaining its mission. Within 3 years, we'd completed projects in 12 cities, creating thousands of housing units and hundreds of jobs. The business press took notice. Articles appeared about our revolutionary approach to development, and proving that profit and purpose can coexist. I was invited to speak at industry conferences, sharing our model with other developers. Many were skeptical initially, but our results spoke for themselves. One evening I received an email from Catherine. Emma, I attended your presentation at the Urban Development Summit. I've never been more proud of anyone. You've transformed what our family built into something meaningful. Thank you for giving us a second chance. It was a genuine expression of gratitude and respect. The woman who'd sneered at my daisies was now thanking me for saving her family's legacy. 5 years after that first horrible dinner at the Ashford mansion, Lucas and I hosted Thanksgiving at our home. We'd moved into a beautiful but modest house in a diverse neighborhood, the kind of place that reflected our values. The Ashfords attended, along with my parents and siblings. It was the first time both families had gathered together peacefully. Catherine helped my mother in the kitchen, the two of them laughing over cooking stories. Richard and my father discussed their favorite baseball teams. Vanessa played with my niece and nephew. Lucas caught my eye across the room and smiled. We'd come so far from where we started. After dinner, Richard stood to make a toast. I want to thank Emma and Lucas for hosting us. 5 years ago, I didn't see Emma's worth. I saw her background and made shallow judgments. I was wrong about everything that matters. He turned to me directly. Emma, you've accomplished more than I ever did. You've built 2 successful organizations that help thousands of people. You've transformed our family business into something we can be proud of. Most importantly, you've shown us what real success looks like. Making a difference, not just making money. He raised his glass. To Emma, who proved that the measure of a person isn't their bank account but their character and impact. Everyone raised their glasses. My mother was crying happy tears. Even Vanessa looked genuinely emotional. Later, as guests were leaving, Catherine pulled me aside. I need to apologize again, properly this time. I treated you horribly because I couldn't see past my own shallow values. You were exactly who Lucas needed. Someone with real integrity and purpose. I'm sorry for the pain I caused. I forgive you, I said, meaning it. Holding on to anger would only hurt me. They'd changed, genuinely grown, and that deserved acknowledgement. Catherine hugged me, something she'd never done before. Thank you for not giving up on this family. After everyone left, Lucas and I cleaned up together. That went well, he said. Better than I ever imagined. I agreed. 5 years ago, I thought I'd made the biggest mistake of my life marrying into your family. Now we've transformed them, Lucas finished. Or maybe they transformed themselves, and we just gave them the opportunity. Maybe both, I smiled. The following year brought new challenges and opportunities. Thrive Together expanded to 100 cities. Thrive Development Group completed its largest project yet, a sustainable neighborhood serving 5,000 residents. I was featured on the cover of Fortune magazine's Most Powerful Women issue. The article detailed my journey from social worker to nonprofit CEO to real estate developer, highlighting the innovative ways I'd integrated social mission with business success. The publicity brought more opportunities. Speaking invitations, consulting requests, partnership offers. I was building influence that could create systemic change. But I never forgot where I'd come from or what I'd learned. Success hadn't come from proving the Ashfords wrong. It came from staying true to my values and doing work that mattered. Lucas's sustainable development firm also thrived, completing innovative projects that minimized environmental impact while maximizing community benefit. He'd found his own path, separate from family expectations or proving himself. We were partners in every sense. Marriage, business, purpose. We'd built a life together that neither family wealth nor its absence could have given us. One afternoon, I received a call from Priya, my best friend who'd supported me through the worst times. Emma, you need to see this. She sent me a link to a viral social media post. It was a screenshot of my Fortune cover alongside an old photo from my wedding, the one where I stood awkwardly holding daisies while Catherine looked disgusted. The caption read, "The woman they called not good enough is now worth $50 million and runs 2 major organizations helping thousands. Never let anyone define your worth." The post had millions of views and thousands of comments. People shared their own stories of being underestimated, using my journey as inspiration. I showed Lucas, who laughed. "You've become an accidental symbol of triumph over snobbery." I didn't do any of this for revenge or to prove them wrong, I protested. I know, he said gently. That's exactly why it resonates. You succeeded by being yourself and doing meaningful work, not by trying to impress anyone. That evening, I received an unexpected email from a major publishing house. They wanted me to write a book about my journey and the principles behind building mission-driven organizations. People need to hear how you transformed rejection into purpose, the editor wrote. Your story isn't just about business success. It's about maintaining integrity and values in the face of pressure to compromise. I agreed to write the book, spending the next year working on it during early mornings and weekends. It was titled Building Together: How Purpose and Profit Can Transform Communities. The book became a bestseller, resonating with readers far beyond the business world. People from all backgrounds connected with the story of being underestimated and finding strength in staying true to yourself. I donated all the book proceeds to fund new family resource centers in underserved communities, turning even this success into a tool for helping others. 7 years after that first terrible dinner, the Ashfords hosted a celebration for Richard and Catherine's 40th wedding anniversary. The event was held at their mansion, but it felt completely different from my first visit. The house was filled with people from all walks of life, not just wealthy socialites but also staff members from Thrive Development Group, families we'd helped through the resource centers, community leaders from our development projects. Catherine gave a speech that brought many to tears. 40 years ago, Richard and I built our marriage on traditional values: wealth, status, appearance. We passed those values to our children and nearly destroyed our family in the process. She paused, looking directly at Lucas and me. 7 years ago, our son brought home a woman we didn't think was good enough. We were blind, shallow, and cruel. Emma wasn't good enough for us because we weren't good enough for her. Richard joined her, placing a hand on her shoulder. Emma showed us what real success looks like. She took everything we thought mattered and proved it was hollow. Then she gave us a chance to be part of something meaningful. He raised his glass. To Emma Hayes, who saved our family by refusing to be what we wanted and insisting on being who she is. The crowd erupted in applause. I felt overwhelmed by emotion, not triumph but gratitude for the journey that had brought us here. Later, Vanessa approached me privately. I need to show you something. She pulled out her phone, displaying photos of a community center she'd been volunteering at. I've been working with underprivileged kids for the past year, she explained, teaching them art and photography. You inspired me to find purpose beyond shopping and social media. I'm actually going back to school for education. I want to teach. I hugged her, genuinely proud. That's wonderful, Vanessa. I wasted so many years being shallow, she said quietly. But watching you made me realize I could be more. Thank you for not giving up on our family. Today I'm 34 years old. Thrive Together operates family resource centers in 150 cities, serving over 50,000 families annually. Thrive Development Group has completed sustainable, inclusive developments in 30 cities, creating affordable housing for 20,000 families. But the numbers don't tell the whole story. The real success is in the letters I receive from single mothers who found stability through our programs, from teenagers who discovered opportunities they never knew existed, from communities that were transformed by development that included rather than displaced them. Lucas and I have 2 children now, a daughter and a son. We're raising them to understand that worth isn't measured in bank accounts but in character and contribution. They see their grandparents regularly. Relationships now built on genuine respect rather than obligation. My parents retired from their bakery, proud of the daughter who never forgot where she came from. They volunteer at our family resource centers, bringing the same work ethic and kindness they always showed. The Ashfords are different people now. Humility transformed them. Richard serves on the board of Thrive Together, using his business expertise to help us expand sustainably. Catherine fundraises for our programs, leveraging her social connections for good. Vanessa teaches art at an inner-city school, finally finding purpose beyond privilege. Last week I was cleaning out old boxes and found the dried daisies from that first dinner. I'd kept them, a reminder of where I started. Looking at them now, I don't feel the pain I once did. Just gratitude for the journey. Those daisies represented everything the Ashfords thought was wrong with me. Simple, cheap, unsophisticated. But they were also beautiful, real, and given with genuine care. Just like the life I've built. Lucas found me holding them, tears in my eyes. "What are you thinking about?" "How your mother looked at these flowers like they were garbage," I said. "And how wrong she was about everything." He wrapped his arms around me. "She knows that now." "I know. But Lucas, even if she never admitted it, I would still be okay. Because I finally understood something important. Their opinion of me never defined my worth. My work defines my worth. My integrity defines my worth. The lives I touch define my worth." He kissed my forehead. "That's why you won. Not because you proved them wrong, but because you never needed to. The in-laws who insulted me for being poor now beg. Not for money, but for guidance. They ask how to find purpose, how to make their lives matter, how to transform their remaining resources into something meaningful. I help them, not because I'm required to or because it feels good to have power over people who once dismissed me. I help them because that's who I am. I see people struggling and I help, whether they're strangers facing crisis or former in-laws facing their own failures. That's the real victory. Not the money or the success or the reversal of fortune. The victory is that cruelty didn't make me cruel. Rejection didn't make me bitter. Being called not good enough didn't make me desperate to prove my worth to people whose values were bankrupt. I stayed myself. I built something meaningful. And in doing so, I showed everyone, including the in-laws who insulted me, what real success looks like. The girl they called poor became wealthy. But more importantly, the woman they called worthless became invaluable. Not to them, but to the thousands of people whose lives are better because I refused to accept their definition of who I should be. That's my story. The in-laws who insulted me for being poor now beg me for help. And I help them not because they deserve it but because helping people is what I do. It's who I've always been. And no amount of wealth or poverty, approval or rejection, could ever change that.